that thing goes.
Definitely needs to be bolted to the ground. Hey guys, Matt here. This week we have a little bit of a departure from our usual working on trucks and products, and we're going to work on the shop a little bit. We've got a piece of equipment that we are going to build and assemble and use, hopefully. Most of our small parts, like I'm holding a riser mount here that hasn't been bent, this would be tumbled to deburr the edges and also put a nice uniform finish on it. And right now, we have to outsource that. And so what we're doing with this is to bring a tumbler in-house. But you have a couple of options. Typically, you can buy a tumbler from anywhere between $4,000 and $8,000, something like that, for like an industrial unit. The other option that I became aware of as I'm just flipping through like Instagram and stuff is there's this cool company, relatively young, Laser Bros. A guy named Court started it, runs it. They've got great content. If you're interested in that, they have a kit. They give, I think the plans are free, but if you want to buy the parts to save either time or whatever, they will laser cut and bend the parts to you and ship them to you. And between those parts, and then they have a parts list, like a McMaster link, you can buy all the stuff. You end up spending about $2,000 for something that is basically equivalent to some of these industrial units. So because it saves a little bit of money, but also because I love a project, that's the route we're going to go. So I just pulled the parts out of the boxes. I'll take a look there, make sure we have everything, and then we'll get going. There's a lot of welding. We're going to have to clean it up and paint it. So I don't know if this will end up being like a montage kind of thing. I'm figuring this out as we go. So I'm no expert, but I thought it might be interesting to share. So let's get into it. Vibratory motor. This thing's got to be beefy if its only job is to basically try to beat the shit out of itself. So we just cut out that liner from this like fancy feeling material, and now I'm going through my McMaster hardware. Some of the specialty stuff and fittings I ordered from McMaster, some of the other stuff I just grabbed locally, but I think this is what we need right now to start welding this thing together. So this is called the motor plate. I've got some hardware here. This is going to be welded to the bottom of the tub, but I've got to put these bolts through here and weld them in place because I think that's what's going to mount the motor. So I've got these holes are a little close to the bend, so I got to tidy those up a little bit, and I'll probably knock some of the finish off these so that I can get a nice clean weld. And we'll move on to welding this to the tub, I think is maybe next. Everything is tacked up and looks nice and straight. I'm just going to finish welding this out. It has to be waterproof, so I'll do a good job. And then I think we have to weld some bungs onto this, so I'll get to it. All right, so now what we're doing while that cools a little bit is we're going to tack and weld the base structure here. So the tub is all welded up, the base is all welded up. We've got to weld the legs to the tub and a couple of small bungs for the fluid in and out, the circulation there, and then we'll be good to paint it and assemble it. I think we're wrapped up with all the welding now, and now it's time to get some paint on this, organize our parts. We can start doing some pre-assembly there, and we should be ready to put it together tomorrow and fill it with media and give it a test. We've got the tub up on the stand with the mounts. Right now I'm pressing and doing some final trimming to fit the liner into the tub, and then we'll bolt the flanges around the top to keep it in place. All right, so the first step of getting this motor on is that we're going to wire power to it. So power is going to come from the wall through a control box, which we'll do next, and then into the motor. So I got to take this plate off. We're also going to make an adjustment to the power of the motor. From the factory, it's set, I think, at about 50%, like 50% vibration, and we're going to crank it to 100. Now, this is an area where my skill set can be outmatched by a project pretty quickly, but I think we'll figure it out. Probably have Loctite. All right, so we're gonna do the same thing on the other side, and then we'll work on the control box. We didn't f it up. All right, so we've got our enclosure here with the mounting plate on the back. We've got our VFD. I'm gonna use 4 self-tapping sheet metal screws to mount the VFD to the backing plate, and then we'll wire it up. This obviously is the back of the tumbler. This is where our fluid circulates. I'm gonna have the VFD mounted over here, which is a little bit arbitrary, but the motor is gonna mount like that. Thread this under here, 4 washers, 4 nuts. Tighten everything down. world's smallest crescent wrench. All right, everything is mounted up. I'm just gonna tidy up some of the wire that we left. All right, so we're gonna leave it on the pallet. I'm gonna test the water pump now, and then we'll test the motor. We're gonna test them independently. And then what we'll probably do is once our media and the fluid arrives, we'll go anchor to this thing to our expansion space so that nobody has to watch it or listen to it. I'll give it a test later today.
We're on.
All right, so we've got our restriction clamp on the outlet of the pump. That's basically matching the amount of fluid that's leaving this 1/4 inch hole at the bottom. So this feels like we're in good shape there. Now what I'm gonna do is plug in the motor and see what happens. 0, we'll turn it to 10. Run.
That thing goes.
Definitely needs to be bolted to the ground.
What is that? Is that 1?
Oh, there we are.
Man, I think it's moving.
All right.
Cool.
It works. We'll bolt it to the floor, fill it with shit, see what happens. All right, so this is going to be the Tumbler's temporary home, but we are going to anchor it down because it dances around quite a bit. So I'm just going to send 2 anchors into the floor here. We'll bolt it into place and fill it up.
Scoop it all out and do it again. We're recording.
Science. All right, so the Tumbler is obviously in its at least temporary home. It is running. We've got some fine tuning to do to figure out the frequency that this thing turns parts out at, and also to see how long things like our riser mounts take. But we're gonna keep doing that and keep experimenting. Maybe we'll check in a few weeks. So catch you next Monday.
Oh, nice. She's rolling. In other news, the 7-Eleven down the street now has gallon big gulp bags. So that's happening.